No, sir. All right, sweet. It's going to trip me out. Yeah, sweet flight. Okay, all right, for the crew coordination, from the time we step out of here to the time we come back, I want you acting like the single seat pilot in command. If there's a decision to be made, you make the decision. If there's something wrong with the forms, don't ask me, ask the crew chief. All that stuff. Cool. Other than that, as we're talking back and forth during the fights, as fighter pilots, we like to be directive and then descriptive. And so I'm going to be exactly backwards on that today. I'm going to try and bring your eyes to the things that I think you may not be seeing first, like airspeed, throttles, assess. And if that's not working, then I'll start trying to tell you exactly what you need to do. Like idle, max. Those are obvious. Blend. If I'm saying blend, you may be thinking, that's a great assessment window. I'm like, no. Blend is just small stick movements. And then hold it there. Okay. Conversely, ease. If I'm telling you to pull. That's a big stick movement. Okay. And then repo, that should make sense. If I say back in or go, do you know what that means?
Just go. Kill.
No, it means you're late. Whatever cue I'm looking at just happened, and you didn't do anything, so I'm telling you. You're late. Go. Sweet. Okay, so remember, BFM cross-check. Only three things really that we can control. Our lift vector, our power, and our pull. Hopefully that affects the range, aspect, closure, and line of sight the way we want. In order to see all this, you got to have a good AGSM. If you're like looking through a soda straw, all that's out. And then we can't just disregard the fuel and the floor because it's kind of a zero-sum game if we shoot down the other guy and then run out of gas on the way home. Or fly into the floor right after his debris hits the ground also. So, now it is a spectrum of urgency. We just fenced in, we got 2.7 on the gas, like clear VFR day. Okay, about every 360 I'll check. On the other hand, if we call Joker in the climb up, and we just started the fights on, it's probably like cross-check in, cross-check gas, cross-check in, cross-check gas. Because if we hit, say, we have 1300 set in the bingo bug, and we hit 1290, at the same time we hit 12,000 feet, you know what we hear?
Altitude.
Yeah. Do you know when bingo starts flashing? After you acknowledge the altitude. So that's horrible if you just fought like 360s with the altitude. You acknowledge like, bingo! Oh shoot, how long has that been flashing? That's why siders fly in the aircraft. Okay, cool. Sweet, let's move on to 3K. So the setup of the 3K looked like you had all ballot setups, but if you're sitting here and he says, sweet, push it up, one's ready, two's ready. If he says sweet, push it up, and it's not immediately one's ready, first, check your altitude. You should be a little bit above the horizon. You should look at your TCAS, and his number should be the same as your number. That's usually the reason that he doesn't immediately call one's ready, two's ready. If that's not good, then look at your range. Range will be the next thing. Move it out to 1.0. If both of those are good, then it keeps worried about your fore aft, and you're probably forward because that'll screw up the geometry. Hey, he's going to call one's ready, two's ready, check left, middle power, G to maintain airspeed. He's going to be pulling a lot harder than we are. So he's going to roll out a lot sooner than our nose is on him. So maintain airspeed, maintain airspeed, maintain airspeed. And then as we're about to put the board cross on, reverse the board cross on him. And now where do you put your, holding the board cross on, where do you put your power?
As required to make it 350.
Okay. I'm going to change that. As required means if I'm below 360, mill power.
Okay.
Because even if you're like 350, 352, 353, as you're counting down, by the time you get to 4,000, you're going to start bleeding airspeed. So if you're, as long as you're below 360, just mill power.
Okay.
If you're at 360 or 361, 362, which is an invalid setup, now just crack it just barely off of the mill power until you're below 360. And then, what have you been doing for the countdown?
I'm calling 29, 6,000, 8, 5,000, 7, 4,000, 7.6, and 7, 4,000.
Yeah. So, I kind of agree with that, I kind of don't. A lot of times people are, have you been kind of 3,000 plus at the fight zone?
Yes, I'm good.
Yeah, okay. So, really what I'm aiming for is 0.7, and the potato will be 4,000, and then 0.6, you should kind of have a pace of how it's been counting down. So what I'm aiming for is 0.6, sweet, it clicks over, fights on. So it is 0.6 and a bit, but it's 0.6, you're trying to time it so that you're saying sweet when it's still 0.6, and then fights on. Don't say sweet, fights on, but you're trying to time it. Otherwise it's not fair to the guy you're shooting if you're like, sweet, fights on. Okay, cool. And now what's your game plan?
It's a full lead and assess.
Pull, lead, and assess. What are we assessing?
His line of sight, like J.
Yeah, we're assessing whether or not he jinks. Because if he doesn't jink, what do we do?
Just kill him.
Yeah, just kill him. So, lift vector power pull. The playbook says power is required. I'm going to tell you, power required is idle. And pull, you're just pulling him from underneath the bore cross to down to the L-top pipper. And lift vector is whatever is required to drag that there. And now, how can I tell an effective jink? Well, if you see him rotate out of plane, you're going to have to reorient your lift vector to maintain the plane of motion. That's an effective jink.
Okay.
So, we're going to repo. What do we do for the repo? Well, I'm sorry, I'll ask you. What did you do for the what have you been doing the last two runs?
My default, like, two shoes, like.
Held too long?
Yes, too long.
Okay.
And weak.
And weak. Okay, cool. So, I'm going to tell you my technique. What I do is I roll out, basically slap the top wing on the horizon, and then 3/4 stick deflection. Not steep pan, 3/4 stick, boom. You're going to, and now what's my recommit?
It's a bench.
No. Why am I repoing?
Get a fixed closure program.
No. I just told you why I was repoing, because he did an effective jink, right?
Yes.
So what's my recommit?
Get, like.
He's not jinking.
Oh, wait.
So as soon as he's not jinking, so think about it, just slap the wing, you should feel a little rumble on the jet here. And now, he's not jinking. This is like immediate, because how long does a jink last? Not long. Right action. So, as you do this, he goes to jink, or you roll up, bump up, and he's going to immediately be back, below the horizon, down like this, because he's pulling down, we're pulling up, and then immediately back in. Now, lift vector, halfway between him and the horizon. Power, max AV. Pull, what's the pull?
Moderate buffet.
Moderate buffer. Okay, cool. What is the moderate buffer?
Point.
No. just shy of the stall. Okay. So how do I know that we're just shy of the stall?
In a way, we'll just feel it, like.
No. You are going to stall this thing. That's how we're going to know we're just shy of the stall. We're going to stall it and go, there's the stall and back off. Because if you're flying 222, it may stall at 0.79 AOA. If you stall 421, I'm not sure that thing can stall. Like, I've flown that and carved around at 1.1 AOA. So, if it, whatever it gives you, it gives you. So, how does this stall? Well, the jet stalls a couple of different ways. Well, each jet. So, you may have a shaky jet. If it's a shaky jet but moving across the horizon, keep pulling. Until you get to a point where it's just shaky in one spot, there's your stall. Back off that much of a pull. And you'll keep track. You've also got the jumpy jets. You've probably seen those. They jump across the horizon, but if it's moving across the horizon, pull more. Until you get to the point where it just jumps back and forth in one spot, there's your stall. Back off. And then you can, when you find the stall, then you can look at the AOA and say, oh, 0.95 is what I got today. My favorite one is the rocky jets. They're sitting there rocky, rocky, rocky. Once again, keep pulling until it stops moving, but you have a problem here. I want the lift vector between bad guy and the horizon. How do you fix that?
Use rudder?
Yes, you have to use the rudder. So, one of these days, when you have 3,000 hours of flying the T-38, you may be able to go, this is how much rudder I need to dampen this out. You're not there. I'm willing to bet. So, what you have to think, and it's always going to rock to the little wing, is kick, 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 and it's just a kick, kick, kick to dampen that out as you are pulling him in. Okay. So, you're going to sit here and max perform all that. Until you get him to the assessment window. And then what do we do?
Just wait, QQ.
No, we assess.
Okay,
We assess. If we do this the way I told you to do it, you're going to be like 2,500, maybe 2,400 feet. Well within kilocues. So, continue to pull, lift vector, as required to drag him right through the board cross. Pull, keep pulling. Max power. And anytime, well, I'm sorry, the power, anytime I go from here to here, I want you assessing closure. Because if you have walking pace closure and you can pull into the HUD, then once we are in lead, now you're going to go to idle. If you are no closure, then once we're in lead, I'm going to leave it in max. If there's like, holy cow, look at all that closure, then as soon as then we can go idle right here. So, normal walking pace closure, we pull him into the HUD. As we're pulling him through the board cross, it's a great time to check how big is he in relation to the board cross. Oh, he's bigger than one wing in the cursor gap, but smaller than the whole thing. Awesome. On time, bring him into the AIM 9 reticle with your right pinky uncaged. Make sure it goes from small to large, not large to small. Things I've seen before. And then box 2. Point being, it's not a race, uncaged box 2. The quickest I've seen is 1 frame between uncaged and box 2. 1/30th of a second. Later on in the rest of your career, you're going to have to hear the tone, verify that it's a good tone, verify that once you've uncaged, it's tracking on what you want it to track, instead of a flare, a cloud, the ground, your flight lead, all of which I've seen. And it's tracking on what you want, and then box 2. Meanwhile, you can continue to pull him down to the pipper there. make sure that his wings are bigger than the inner ring of the pipper, because that's 2,500 feet, middle size. I also like to pull a little bit further than pure lead because, or just enough lead, because if this is one of those rocky jets, or jumpy jets, or shaky jets, one of which it probably will be, you pull a little bit further, turn the gun on, and you have to ease, so some of that AOA goes away, and some of the buffing. Now, we're going to hammer down, hold. In the playbook it says, do a 1 to 2 second burst. The reason they say that is because 1 to 2 seconds should be enough for you to get 15 frames. And one of the reasons to repo is because the dude in front of you blows up and you don't want to fly through all the burning debris. He's not actually going to blow up. Word is going to survive this flight. So, I know you were worried about that. So, a couple of other reasons why we're going to repo. One, if they do an effective G. We already talked about that. Two, if we can't pull enough lead. Or three, we end up approaching the bubble. What does approaching the bubble mean? Well, imagine that we are holding him right under here and he's growing larger and larger, and his wings are now not touching just the inner circle, but they're approaching the outer circle. Now we're approaching the bubble. Time to repo. Which is great if you hold him directly under the pipper. What does that look like here? Well, if you see both burner cans, two distinct burner cans, not just a figure 8, that's 1,500 feet, that's close enough. Or if you're looking up and you're like, whoa! It's time to go. So what you're going to do there, lift vector. 60 to 90 degrees out of his plane of motion. Power, if it's not in idle, should already be in idle, or should be back in idle now. And then smoothly blend to that motor buffer turn. Pull up, he's going to put it down. Now what's our recommit here? Well, as we're moving up, there's going to be all sorts of line of sight in your canopy as you roll out and you move up. So it's not just line of sight, but it's line of sight across the ground. And you may hear me say, back in! And you may say, Sider, he's like 1,000 feet away. I can't pull in because there's a bubble. And you're going to hear me say, back in, back in, back in! Reason being, because you feel like you're pulling this way. But you just, when you see that line of sight, you just crossed out of the circle, you crossed out of his flight path. So what's really happening is you're aligning the fuselages, but you're getting further away. In that case, once again, max power, motor buffer turn, lift vector as described before. Now, at this point, this may be a point where you hear one nose away. And what do you say? Okay. I don't know how it is in the Japanese Air Force, but there's only one thing that we teach here at IFF that directly applies to the rest of the combat Air Force, and that's what you have to say when the guy who you're fighting goes no joy. You have to say a whole bunch of things. Like F-15 BFM is not like T-38 BFM, but this will translate. You have to say, you can keep fighting, I still see you, you're about to die, thank you for losing sight of me, this is awesome. And you only have one word to say all of that. And so it should sound, back me up here, it should sound something like, continue! And I will tell you, you can learn this now in offensive, or you can learn it in defensive. Your choice. Okay. Yeah. So now, let's say that we, recommit like I talked about before. Now we get to the assessment window, and once again, what do? We assess. You say, oh shoot, I can see all sorts of detail. It looks really big. I feel like I've got closure. I don't have attack use because I'm too close. How do I fix this? Well, it's an ease repo. How do I ease repo? Go idle and just stop pulling. It's not solve this problem with airspeed. Solve this problem with angles. And then we'll recommit at 2,000 feet. If he's not near the assessment window, now we'll get back here between 2,500 and 3,000 feet, and we'll have room to attack. Let's say if we're doing that ease repo, you see him tracking up on the horizon. And you hear altitude, altitude. You remember to glance forward. Oh yeah, we're approaching 12,000 feet. We don't want to go through the 10,000 foot floor. Lift vector. Raise to keep above him. Power is still in max. And pull changes from that moderate buffet to look at your airspeed. And now it's whatever pull it takes to sustain the airspeed. Which may mean it looks like you're losing a little bit. You're not really losing. Just looks that way. Then we'll sustain, 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 sustain. And wait till we get him to the assessment window. If we have attack use, then give up whatever airspeed you need to, moderate buffet to max perform to pull him into the hub. In that case, you probably won't have any closure, so you may have to gun him in max. On the other hand, if he's too far away, which may be it's a very distinct possibility, leave him at the assessment window, ease, max power. What's going to happen is your airspeed will start ticking up. And you don't take it out of full max until you either get to 415, at which point you start throttle modulating, or you see attack cues. At attack cues, the pull will keep him in the assessment window. Either we see attack cues, or pulling to keep him in the assessment window will start leading at airspeed. In which case you say, okay, I'll just let you get away from the assessment window again. Sustain, 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 and then get back there. And now, this is one of those times where we may be at 415, they may be at 280. Lots of closure when we get to the attack cues, so go idle as you're pulling into attack. Cool. Questions on any of that?
Yeah. For the past before, you said like 4 to like 3 third quarter, but always these vector will be like load up like 90.
Yeah. You pull lead, you jinky, roll out, boom, and then right back in.
So back angle is not dependent, just always load up like motor.
Yeah.
Driving.
Yeah. For my technique, a 3/4 stick, it's just roll out. Because all we're really trying to do is stop all closure while he's doing his jig. We're not even in range of the gun yet. So think, roll out, and this is a stop. This is like stop, slow you down. I don't care if you climb or not. I just want you to get some buffet on the jet. Cool. All right. So moving on to 6 kids.
Yeah, more question.
Sure.
Okay. So less than 1,000, you are not doing low yo-yo things, like even you say like set vectors above him. So even like you think like 0 degrees and if you have SA, you are not doing low yo-yo.
There are some times to do low yo-yos, but not. Yeah, I'll talk you through that if we need to. We're not planning on doing low yo-yos on a 3K. I'm not saying that there won't be times for it, but 6K, you've been doing these since heat guns, so hopefully the setup makes sense, right? Countdown, lights on, all that. Now, what's your game plan here? Yes, turn circle entry, rate and assess. So, at the flight's on, he's going to go into his brake turn. Our lift vector, roll out. Power, as required to maintain 415. Just keep it pretty much where it is. And then pull. The playbook says somewhere between level to 1 to 2 degrees. I don't care. It doesn't really matter that much. And as we pull up, he's going to be moving a little bit across the horizon and down. He's going to be moving a little bit as we're cruising this way, and the aspect's going to be building. And there's going to come a point where the aspect build freezes, and there's rapid line of sight across the horizon. That's the key. The crutch, because this is very difficult to see in a T-38. The crutch is just the inside of the mirror there. So, lift vector, it says, the playbook says the low wing, whatever, he's 2 mils wide, put it on me. If you can see 2 mils, fine. Power is initially max AV. Pull like the second turn of the GX. Like you pull the G senior plate with 4.5 Gs and then blend to either the single rate beeper or you get to the assessment window. If you go on time, you will never get to the single rate beeper. You'll get into the assessment window before you get to the single rate beeper. So don't freak out if you don't hear a single rate beeper. Okay. And then once you get to the assessment window, ease to hold him there, and then throttle modulate. And now, throttle modulate. If you are seeing 4, if you keep on increasing, and you're back up against the min AV stop, and you're seeing 425, take 1. And only 1 throttle out of AV. Because these engines take so long for the afterburners to light, we'll just have 1. We'll always have 1 cooking. And now, we're looking for those attack cues. And realize that unlike the heat guns, which may be in 180 degrees, you see attack cues, we may be a full 360. So, just keep that in mind. What do attack cues look like? First, the jet is as wide as it is long, or wider. 2, that's the aspect. 2, you start seeing the intake start popping out on the shoulders of the jet. 3, you're doing a little lobster eye, looking at how wide he is and comparing it to the bore cross. Is he as wide as 1 wing and the cursor gap of the bore cross? And then 3rd, tertiary, only after those first 2, then you can peek at the air-to-air attack. That will lag and it will lie to you. But if you say, I've been doing this a long time, it feels like I should be ready to go, I think I see everything, and you look down and it says 0.8, you're probably too far away. Okay. But it will lag, it will lie to you. I've seen 3,000 feet, say 0.7, and I've seen 0.5 at 1,500 feet. So it's not a radar. Okay. Once you see that, once you see those attack cues, then it's max AV, and once again, anytime from here to here, assess the closure. Max AV, blend, you're probably already 4.5 Gs, single ray beeper, beep, 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 and pull him into the HUD. He should be tightening down and be around 350. We should have some walking pace closure, and from there, it's just like a 3K. But, I'm not saying Word and Bolt are going to do this, but it would not be the first time that some DS is an old guy like me that's like, come on! Will you please, my neck is hurting. Oh shoot, I should have tightened down like 10 seconds ago. And so if you blindly pull the power, because we always pull the power when he's in the HUD, it may be open fire at 26, 27, 2,800 feet instead of closing. I've only seen it, but 1,000 times. So from there, it's just like a 3K, right? The big difference is that on this first attack, you may be at, say, 380 when you repo, so please don't overdo. Cool, that's a 6K. Questions on that?
Okay, one question. You say at 125 is just come at 180. So before that, you're gonna make note at, then if it's still increasing, come at 180, or just...
Well, you should be, oh, it's still increasing, pull the throttle back, oh, shoot, I'm at min AB. Okay, yeah, one out. And then once we're below 425, back into min AB.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, let's talk about some contingencies. Let's say that drive into the turn circle. And I say go, which means you're late, and you roll up and you say, wow, he is nowhere near the assessment window. Now, originally we put the lift vector on him. I'm going to want you to actually get the single ray beeper and sustain your airspeed, which sounds like what? Sounds, yeah, it's a low yo-yo, but it sounds like the second turn of the GX. Which means lift vector below him, and then as required get 10 to 12 degrees nose low, or whatever it takes to maintain single ray beeper, which will be about 10 degrees nose low, which is going to force him up above the horizon. Now, Mr. Hand likes to fly where Mr. Eye is looking. So you have to force yourself to fly down while looking up. Beep, 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 until he's in the assessment window, which is tangential to the canopy bow. And now, first things first, look at your airspeed, and if you bled off too much airspeed, get healthy. Get back into that 410 plus or minus 10. And then, and I'll tell you for this low yo-yo, I've gone out and I've done it a couple of times on purpose. It's no longer 410 plus or minus 10. It's 410 to 420. I'll explain why in just a second. But now, once you're in that 410 to 420, now you can climb up with the lift vector to bring him down to the horizon. And now we're looking for attack speeds. And like I said, when I've gone out and done this before on purpose, it sucks because when you get to here, or when you get to that 3,000 feet, instead of 30 degrees of aspect, you may see 35 or so, which means you want the extra couple of knots to be able to square the corner. That's a lot of single ray beeper. Let's try and avoid that. The last contingency I want to talk to is, let's say that you're like, okay, there we go. Let's pull him into the HUD, and he's nowhere near the size of one wing, let alone a wing and a cursor gap on the board cross. What do you do there?
You can go back.
That's a technique. Can't say it's a wrong technique, but couldn't you also arcade spots too? We already screwed up, let's make it pay for it. now we got 2 valid Mach 2s, which is what's required for a kill. So now, as we've got 2 valid Mach 2s, now we have to assess. Can I gun this dude or not? Oftentimes, because we're pulling lead when we shouldn't, he's going to be a pretty high aspect. And if it gets to the point where, wow, there's a lot of high aspect, but I can't pull enough lead, then we're going to have to do an ease repo, but it's a different kind of ease repo that I told you before. This is, oh shoot, I can't pull enough lead. Max power, ease, let him get out of here. And then when do I recommit? When when aspect equals 1% of range. So if it's at 3,000 feet, I'll recommit or if I'm at 30 degrees of aspect, at 3,000 feet. If I'm at 2,000 feet, at 20 degrees of aspect. If I'm at 1,000 feet, then basically I'm looking down the burn can when I recommit that. But leave it in max so that we can pull it back around and get a little bit of energy there. Cool. Those are all the fun things that we can do today. What questions do you have?
I don't have any question right now, so.
All right. I will see you down there in 10 minutes.